Tip today in association with Slattery's of Pecan, your main Peugeot dealer for over 50 years in the Premier County. Slattery'sGarage.ie.
Good morning. Welcome along to Tip Today, 1800 938 007. That's our free phone number. It won't cost you if you'd like to make a call to us. And as ever, Leanne is producing. Coming up on the show this morning, Irish Road Haulage Association President Ger Hyland will join me shortly. We'll also be speaking to a former Irish soldier who served with the UN in the Middle East. Father Iggy O'Donnovan will be here to discuss Donald Trump's extraordinary comments about Pope Leo. Jackie Conboy, co-founder of the Music and Entertainment Association of Ireland, will join us. Labour Deputy Alan Kelly will be with us after 10. We'll also hear a powerful and very moving story indeed from a mother who lost her son to sarcoma cancer. There are also fresh calls for the urgent revitalisation of Ireland's sugar tax, and as always, we'll be hearing from you, our wonderful listeners. So all of that and more on the way. You can text and WhatsApp 083 311 3311. You can email tiptoday@tipfm.com. Now we have that competition for you as well, because this week Larry O'Keefe Furniture giving away a €250 voucher to celebrate their huge sale with big savings, we're assured, right across all of the departments, whether it's the living room you want to have a look at, or the bedroom, or the dining room, all of that and more. Unbeatable offers, we are assured. So if you want to get involved in that competition, we're looking for a finalist today again, and of course the winner will be drawn on Friday. So to enter, all you have to do is text Larry O'Keefe to 083 311 3311, giving us your name and your details as well. That's 083 311 3311. Let's have a look at the front pages of some of your newspapers. Now it's Wednesday, so the local publications are on your shelves. The Tipperary Star, their lead story, Sean Ryan telling us that ambitious homeowners are hoping to capitalise on Adair's hosting of the Ryder Cup in September of 2027, as the average asking price for accommodation in Tipperary is over €36,000 to stay for the tournament. Lovely picture on the front of the Star as well of Grace Cantwell, Poppy Shanahan and Annabelle Butler, and Evine Doyle as well is there, of Moyne Athletics Club, and they're looking very happy after much success. The Guardian, lead story on The Guardian today, organised late Friday evening on social media, well supported. Peaceful protest took place in Nina on Saturday afternoon, and they have a photograph from that protest dominating the front page. The Nationalist, and the lead story on the Nationalist today, Tipperary County Council have confirmed that they have, through an agreed compulsory purchase order in December of last year, required the D.W. Park Chemist building in Clonmel Town. Now, it's understood that the council will be leasing the building to the Landmark Trust, in news that was broadly praised indeed by local politicians as exciting and progressive for the town. And the photograph dominating the front of the Nationals today is that of Cara Ryan of Clonmel AC, who won the under-17 girls shot put at the National Juvenile Championship on April the 11th, and well done indeed to her. To the national papers then, the Irish Daily Mail, and right across the newspapers today, coverage of the confidence vote, of course, yesterday. The Mail telling us that Micheál Martin's leadership has been damaged after Michael Healy-Rae put the blame on him for his shock resignation from government following the fuel protests. To the Irish Examiner, and it's dominated by a photograph of the aforementioned Michael Healy-Rae with his arm raised and his fist clenched, and playing to the crowd, of course, that gathered outside of government buildings yesterday. And the Examiner telling us that the government survived a motion of no confidence but lost a junior minister, as Michael Healy-Rae sensationally resigned on the floor of the Dáil. Also on the Examiner today, the number of children waiting over 2 years for initial speech and language therapy assessment has risen by 100 and 49% in the space of 11 months. Can you believe it? What a shame that is. The Irish Times, again dominated by a photograph of Michael Healy-Rae, and their headline there, Healy-Rae resignation blindsides government in first major defection. Also on the Times, two new players entered the market yesterday as Irish banking saw its biggest shake-up for many years. Monzo, a UK neobank, formerly started operating in the state with 100,000 customers, as Austria's BAWAG bank also secured cabinet approval to buy PTSB. And finally, a look at the Irish Independent, and once again, Michael Healy-Rae in full flight there, and their headline says it all, really, I suppose. Coalition in crisis. Also on the Indo today, the Media Minister, Patrick O'Donnovan, has signed off on a €20,000 pay hike for RTE's boss. Now, that's interesting in itself, but it's particularly interesting, despite his criticism on this show during the week, of the broadcaster's coverage of the fuel protest. But anyway, Kevin Backhurst will have a salary hike there of 20 grand. That's a look at what's making headlines today. If you want to make comment on any of that, once again, text WhatsApp 083 311 3311. Irish Road Haulage Association President Ger Hyland has welcomed the supports which were signed off by government ministers on Sunday afternoon, and he joins me now. Good morning to you, Ger.
Morning, thanks for having us on.
Well, thanks very much indeed for coming on with us today. You said the best way to resolve issues is through dialogue, Ger, but many would argue that it was the scale of the protest that led to the government to extend supports to your members.
Well, look, I certainly am not going to claim that the protest didn't put some pressure on government, but without a negotiator around the table, you won't negotiate anything either. So maybe it was a giant collaboration. Maybe, like, there was some of our members certainly involved in them protests, and we can empathise with them. We can see exactly where they're coming from. Because whether you were a haulier in protest, whether you were a haulier at home, or whether you were a haulier in Dublin trying to negotiate something with government, we were all in the one boat here. We were all watching our businesses evaporate in front of our eyes. Businesses that people have spent a lifetime and years trying to build up, 2 and 3 generation businesses, absolutely crumbling before our eyes because we could no longer buy fuel.
There was lots of frustration out there, Ger, and what we heard from protesters here on this programme, and I heard it reflected on many other programmes as well, is the feeling that many of the hauliers, and indeed farmers as well, they don't feel represented by their organisations, and that would include your organisation, Ger. What do you say to that claim?
Well, I say to anybody who is a haulier that doesn't feel represented by our organisation, come and join our organisation if you're not already a member. And if you are a member, or if you join our organisation, come to our meetings. If you're not happy with the way the organisation is representing you, get yourself on the council, get yourself on the board, and become active in your local organisation. There's enough hurlers on the ditch in every industry. We need people to come into our organisation. We need young, dynamic people in our organisation that's going to come in there and work for the betterment of our industry. And it's very easy. Sit on the sideline. Very easy.
And Ger, are you describing the people on the protests who were unhappy with your organisation and felt you didn't represent them? Are you calling them hurlers on the ditch?
No, I certainly am not. I'm just making the point that if you're not happy with some organisation, if you're not happy with who's representing you, get yourself on the committee and change it. We will welcome anybody who was on that protest to come and join our association if they're not already a member. We will welcome anybody off them protests who wants to put their shoulder to the wheel here and get involved. We need people like that.
And the other claim, the organisations such as yourself and the farming organisations as well, that you're too close to government. It's too kind of cosy.
Well, look, you're going to hear all these things, and you'll hear about all the brown envelopes that I have got, and so forth and so on. I can tell you categorically here, I don't even claim for a litre of diesel going into my car to go to any of these meetings. I have never yet. I'm involved in the Irish Road Haulage Association, I suppose, 30 or 40 years. I'm at the head of it for the last 3 years, 3.5 years. I've been on management prior to that. I have yet to put in an expense claim into the Irish Road Haulage Association. Absolutely every meeting. Our association is a voluntary association. We don't even claim for the diesel it takes me to get to Dublin. Well and good if I have to stay overnight in a hotel or whatever for a meeting, yes, the hotel will be paid for. But other than that, there is no claim put in from any member that's on the management of our association.
And because of all of the attacks on you over the last while, as you say, you are a volunteer. Have you considered your position at the head of the organisation, Ger?
I haven't, because I'll be quite honest with you, I'm a third generation haulier. I won't say I'm not in this for the money. Of course I'm in it to make a living and provide for my family. But that living is getting harder and harder to make. The margin that we had in transport before the Gulf crisis was somewhere around 3 to 5%. That's all. Like, you've had me on your radio station several times over the last couple of years. And I have been telling you, by the time we pay our government taxes, whether it's taxes on fuel or everything else that we pay, road tolls, so forth and so on, we actually have nothing left. This Gulf crisis was the straw that broke the camel's back. It's quite simple that the hauliers in this country, they have absolutely nothing left by the time they pay all their government taxes. So yes, it did get very personal, but I'm in this in transport because I started into it at 14 years of age. I know very little else, and I'm in it for the love of it, as is the majority of hauliers.
And at this point, have you any regrets about not becoming part of the protest itself, Ger?
I couldn't become part of the protest. We, as the management team of the Irish Road Haulage Association, made a decision. Like, the minute the Gulf crisis started, we were in with government. We were banging the door of government saying that unless our transport industry got support here, we were going to see hauliers failing. And what we've got in our last round of talks will be a huge help, but it's not going to save every haulier out there. That is for sure. But go back to the first round of talks that we got probably 3 weeks ago at this stage. Like, we got 20 cents with the VAT included, the same as everybody else in the country. We got that through negotiation. We also got an extra few pence on our diesel rebate. We got the 2 cents in Nora taken off the National Oil Reserve that was being imposed on fuel prices. It wasn't. It was significant at the time, but in a week and a half it was gone with price increases. Now, who can envisage where the price of diesel is going to go? Everybody, there's speculation out there everywhere. Nobody knows where it's going to go. The very minute that was eroded, we were back in again, beating the door of government. But not alone, we couldn't be on a protest and in negotiating with government at the same time. It just doesn't work. And we had to show some bit of leadership here. So we went back again. We left the door open the first time that if this escalated and we needed support again, would the government be there to support us? And they told us they would. So the very minute the first law of aid was swallowed up, we were back knocking on the door of government again. But we weren't just back knocking on the door of government with our cap in our hand. We brought proposals to government as to how they might fund this. And that was some of the reason that we got the support we got in the last few days. That support is not just for the licensed haulier now. That support is for any man that has a truck in Ireland, whether it's a sand and gravel truck, whether it's your local guy drawing a few cattle to the factory. It's for everybody, not just for members of our association. So, to be quite honest with you, people were... This whole social media thing got very, very bad last week. I didn't read it. I don't read those things. Because if you did, you wouldn't get up in the morning.
And what about moving forward, Ger? I mean, is it going to be a task now to heal the wounds that have emerged from this as well, and to heal your organisation, and I suppose bring in more hauliers into the organisation?
Well, we've had a number of people ringing our office over the last 2 days to join our organisation. And this is what I'm saying to you here this morning. If anybody wants to join our organisation, we will welcome them with open arms. We need new people. We need young, dynamic people to come into that organisation. Like all hauliers, the average age of anybody on the top table of our organisation, including myself, is 60 years of age and over. So we need the young people that's operating trucks. We need the young people out of the family businesses to step up here and come to our meetings, get themselves into positions. I don't want to be here for the next few years trying to head up an organisation or else go back on management again. We want young, dynamic people that have an interest in our industry to come and join us.
All right, Ger. Well, thank you for your time this morning, and good to talk to you as always. Thanks, and good morning to you. And that's Ger Hyland there of the Irish Road Haulage Association. What do you make of that? 083 311 3311. A listener says, Fran, I can't understand why the media are saying that the Taoiseach is damaged by Mr. Healy-Rae's resignation because government don't care about the people. He never cared. All he's good for is sneering at everybody that stands up to him, says Kay. And that's probably making reference to what Mary Lou MacDonald said, because she referenced sneering that she said she witnessed in the chamber yesterday. 1800 938 007. Somebody else saying that Michael Lowry knows the best form of defence is attack. The Healy-Rae stuck with the people. Michael didn't, it says here. He is only deflecting from himself. All right, let me take a break. We're back with more in just a moment.
Tipp FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, hook on. Main Peugeot dealers in the Premier County. And now stocking the full range of the luxury French car brand DS Automobiles. Book your test drive today with Slattery's Garage, hook on. See slatterysgarage.ie. Tip Today, in association with Slattery's of Pecan, your main Peugeot dealer for over 50 years in the Premier County. slatterysgarage.ie.
Now, a couple of things for your diary. Lovely to hear from Michael John Ryan last night. Michael John Ryan, of course, of Danny Ryan's music shop, Bank Place there in Tipperary town. But he was telling me about a wonderful choral concert on this coming Sunday, the 19th at 5 p.m. in St. Michael's Church in Tipperary town, with Madrigal 75 from Cork performing there. They're one of the best vocal ensembles in the country. So if you're involved in any choir or any vocal group, you will love this. And the good news is that admission is free. And now there is a retiring collection for the church there for St. Michael's, all right. But it's a lovely opportunity. They are just wonderful. They make a beautiful sound, and with the acoustics of St. Michael's there, it should be very special indeed. As well as that, Father Jim in Thurles was telling me that Patrick Feeney and his wonderful band will perform a gospel concert tour on Saturday, April 25th, which is Saturday week, isn't it? At St. Joseph and St. Bridget's Church in Thurles. Now, it's a fundraiser for the cathedral re-roofing project, and of course, urgent repair is needed there. But tickets available from the parish office or indeed online at inourhands.thurles.ie. Okay, so again, it's going to be a great one. Patrick does a fantastic show altogether. Joining me now is JJ Killian, who served as second in command of one of the first units deployed to Lebanon in September of 1978. He remained there until May of 1979, also served in Egypt, Syria and Jordan. He recently sent us a fascinating email sharing his perspective on the current situation in the Middle East, and he joins me now. Good morning to you, JJ.
Good morning, Fran. Can you hear me all right?
I can hear you fine, JJ, and thank you so much for coming on with us today. You had an Iranian battalion serving alongside you because, of course, this was before the Shah was deposed, JJ.
Yes, correct. Yeah, we were one of the first units into Lebanon in 1978. I was second in command of a company there, which was at the UN headquarters down in Nakura, just near to the Israeli border. And we did have an Iranian battalion serving with us. Now, a battalion of Iranians would number about 700 to 750 troops. And everything was fine. They were very, very nice people. Everything was fine. But in January of 1979, the Shah, as you know, was deposed in Iran, and all hell broke loose all over the Middle East and in Lebanon. And things became very, very tricky, and a lot of factions there were fighting for control and for power, you know. So it was a very, very dangerous time in Lebanon, Fran.
And, you know, that really gives you a certain insight into what's going on there now at this stage, JJ. What is your reading of that?
Well, my reading now, Fran, and if I can say it, not to be too pessimistic, but I think this Iranian campaign will end in tears for the Americans. And I'm saying that, if I give you a really quick backdrop on that, the Americans, for example, went into Korea in 1953 and 54 in the fight against communism. They're still there entangled. And as we're speaking this morning, Fran, American troops are facing North Korean troops across the demilitarized zone. So that didn't end well. They went from there to Cuba in the invasion of pigs, the Bay of Pigs invasion, under President John F. Kennedy, a total disaster which lasted about 2 days, huge embarrassment for the States, and they ended up paying huge reparation. They went from Cuba to Vietnam. Vietnam is a very, very sad chapter in American history. Despite all the films like, you know, Apocalypse Now and Rambo and all that, the Americans had a very, very bad time in Vietnam. They couldn't handle the guerrilla warfare. There was massive drug abuse among the troops there, very low morale. They went from Vietnam into Iraq, and Iraq has a resonance with the present situation because they went into Iraq on the basis of a lie, a complete fabrication about weapons of mass destruction. Yeah. And we're inside in Iran now on another fabrication. We went from Iraq into Afghanistan, another total disaster. We spent 20 years in Afghanistan, spent billions and billions and billions of dollars, and Afghanistan is in a worse situation now today. So on to Iran, and we've got into Iran with no plan, make it up as we go along, and it will end in disaster. There's nothing shorter. That's where we are right now, Fran.
You've been involved in strategy. Are you aghast at the notion that there doesn't seem to be a strategy here? And there's certainly not, as the phrase goes nowadays, JJ, there's not an off-ramp here.
Not at all, no. Well, if you go back to our Chinese general Sun Tzu in the 5th century, he says that tactics without strategy is the noise before defeat.
Wow. And
that's what we have here. The Americans have gone into Iran, no strategy, make it up as they go along, and it will end in defeat. And if you look coldly at the situation right now, as it has turned out, the Iranians have come out on top so far, and they're the ones who are causing all the hassle around the world at the moment. The Americans have found out a lot of things in the last few weeks. You found out you can't achieve regime change by bombing from the air. You can do nothing with a bombing campaign. You have to put boots on the ground, and boots on the ground in Iran will be an absolute disaster.
And is that because of the terrain there being so mountainous? And you're talking about, 90 million people, I suppose?
Yeah. No, it's not that, Fran. There are factors, all right. But the fan is, to mount a military campaign, in military terms, the very, very basic requirement you need is a clear mission statement. Now, a mission statement is the who, what, when, where, why. And President Trump has never explained the why. He comes out with these sound bites, and that's all we've got. There's total confusion as to why we are in Iran. They haven't achieved the popular revolution they look for. They haven't curtailed the uranium stocks. They haven't impeded the development of nuclear capability, and they have not affected regime change. They have killed a lot of top Iranian officials, but the regime is still there. So on all those 4 or 5 fronts, they have failed, no question.
Probably President Trump, his excuse, if I can use that word, is that Iran were possibly providing some sort of existential threat from a nuclear point of view. Do you view it as that? Were they that big a threat?
No, not at all. As I said to you, it goes back to the very same parallel with George W. Bush. He told us that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction, which could be released within hours. A total lie. And we have the same thing here. We're told by Mr. Trump that Iran are posing a threat, but he has never given any evidence whatsoever to tell us what that threat is.
And the Israelis and that aspect of this, then, how do you view that?
Well, the Israelis raison d'etre, sir. Their whole historical stance in the Middle East is to wipe Iran off the map, and Iran has the very same attitude to Israel. And I would say that Israel has had a big influence on coaxing America into this war, because Israel is afraid that Iran will sometime get nuclear capability, and that would not be good for Israel. And the answer to that is that Israel will want its own nuclear capability, and then Saudi Arabia want nuclear capability, and the Middle East will become an absolute disaster. Now, and keep in mind, like, that there are massive areas of wealth in the Middle East which are important to the whole world. Like, for example, Fran, take under the Strait of Hormuz, there's the biggest natural gas field in the world. If you listen to the numbers here, there are 1,800 trillion cubic feet of natural gas under the Hormuz Straits. That could, fuel the whole world for decades and decades to come. So the Middle East is a really, really, really important aspect of the whole world economy. So we're playing with high stakes here.
And what do you make of the decision that the Americans now want to control the Straits, and because they're concerned about the tolls being charged by Iran? That's a whole other dynamic on this, isn't it?
It is. Yes, it is. Yeah, and I think they're making a further mistake. President Trump and the Americans are boxing themselves into a corner, and they're like a fly caught in a web. Every twist and turn they make is getting them more entangled. I think the U.S. blockade on the Hormuz Straits is a bad idea. It will prolong the war. It gives the Iranians another bargaining chip. It makes the matter more complex and makes it much more difficult to iron it out. The blockade, there's one blockade there at the moment. Now the U.S. is putting on a second blockade. Not a good idea, and it will not end well.
Even if the Americans come to some sort of agreement, and again we're hearing this morning that may happen over the next few days, I'm guessing that Israel will continue a bombardment of southern Lebanon. Yes,
Israel will continue in Lebanon, because Israel wants to. Again, it's the same as the Americans. The Americans thought they would wipe out the Iranian regime. The Israelis are talking about wiping out Hezbollah. Now they're trying that for the last 30 years. They will not wipe out Hezbollah in Lebanon. Hezbollah are a battle-hardened, very, very well-equipped group. They are backed up by the Iranians, and the Hezbollah have Lebanon in their grasp. The Lebanese army would not be competent enough or well-equipped enough to fight Hezbollah. Hezbollah are there for the long haul, and they will be a thorn in Israel's side for a long time to come yet. And so that battle will continue. So Israel are fighting a war on two fronts now at the moment. And, they will get war weary, but they are a very defiant people,
When you were serving in the Middle East, did you have much to do with the Israelis, JJ?
Yes, we would have had a lot of interactions with the Israelis, because they were only a couple of miles away. And we had sometimes very, very controversial relations with the Israelis, because they backed up the local Christian militia at times. And they often inflicted damage on us, So we were often involved in firefights with the local militias who were always backed up by the Israelis, you know. So we didn't have great relationships with them, to be honest. On a personal basis, I found them to be, you know, unfriendly and a bit arrogant. But that's just my viewpoint, you know.
Where do you think, look into your crystal ball for me, and again with your military experience, JJ, where is it all going to end? I
would say this will end, no matter what way President Trump dresses this up, this will end in defeat again. I mean, I've given you the Koreas, the Cubas, the Vietnams. Yeah. Iran will end up in another defeat for the United States because they need an off-ramp now. They got into a fight here, and they didn't expect that the Iranians would be so resilient. The Iranians now have you know, the Americans fought a military campaign, but the Iranians very, very cleverly have fought a commercial and economic campaign, which is affecting the whole world. It's affecting you and me right now. So that's how far-reaching it is, you know, and it will affect the whole global economy for years to come. I'm not sure how the Americans are going to get out of this, but it won't be with any grace. And I think no matter what they say, at the end of the day, whatever way President Trump dresses it up in sound bites, this will be yet another defeat for the United States.
And does it make you wonder about the people who are surrounding Mr. Trump? Because anybody with even a shallow knowledge of economics could have foreseen this, JJ.
Oh yeah. Well, you see, like there's two here, like there's two phenomena at work here. If you look at any picture of your television picture of the last couple of years, you'll see the White House, the Oval Office there, filled with people. There could be 15, 20 people there. One person talking all the time, President Trump. Everybody else with their mouths shut. And what's going on there is a very severe case of groupthink. Everyone's afraid to say boo or say no to the president. It's all, yes, Mr. President, yes, Mr. President. That's the problem. And the other phenomenon that's going on here, Fran, is a thing called the risky shift phenomenon, where people in groups or advisory groups will make decisions they would never make as individuals. So they can say, if it goes all wrong, well, it wasn't me, it was the group. And we have a lot of dodgy people advising Mr. Trump at the moment. A lot of people who would not have any standing in their own right. And he's been like President John F. Kennedy in Cuba. President Trump is being very, very badly advised at the moment. And adding to that, like, he is a classic narcissist. He wants to be the star on the stage all the time himself. So he's his own worst enemy, you know.
And you mentioned Kennedy, Cuba, and the Bay of Pigs, for example, and where we were with the doomsday clock at that point. Is this an even worse? Is this a worse position? Is it a comparable position?
Oh, this is a comparable position. The Cuban crisis. I remember when I was a schoolboy, the Cuban crisis. Like we thought at the time that they were within yards of each other, and there was, you know, Khrushchev and Kennedy would come to blows. But really, it never really got that acute. When it comes down to it, but this situation here has the potential to become very, very nasty. And the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, said only yesterday that this will affect the global economy for years to come. We're all suffering because of this. This will not end well, and I just hope that the cooler heads will get down and come up with some sort of a compromise here.
And because of your time, I know it was a brief time in Egypt and Jordan, but you must be looking to what's happening in Gaza as well, JJ.
Oh yeah, Gaza is a humanitarian disaster. Gaza is just so unjust. I've been in Gaza myself, and I've spoken to people there and gone to villages there. They're lovely people, but they are suffering terribly in this situation. Like, you know, you know, we can talk about the retaliation and balancing the books and everything else, but Israel have gone overboard here, and whatever was done to them, and I do understand what happened back in the October a couple of years ago, but I think their retribution has been way out of kilter with what they suffered, you know.
All right, JJ, well, most interesting conversation, and I look forward to talking to you again in the future. JJ, thank you for that. Thank you, and good morning.
Thank you very much, Fran.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
That's
Bye-bye.
JJ Killian there, who served as second in command. One of the first units indeed deployed to Lebanon back in 1978. How do you feel about that conversation? 083 311 3311. Okay, lots coming into us on that, and I'll just have it glance through it, and I'll bring it to you in just a few moments.
Tipp FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puck On. Main Peugeot dealers in the Premier County. And now stocking the full range of the luxury French car brand DS Automobiles. Book your test drive today with Slattery's Garage, Puck On. See slatterysgarage.ie. Tip Today, in association with Slattery's of Pecan, your main Peugeot dealer for over 50 years in the Premier County. slatterysgarage.ie.
Many listeners on to say how interesting that conversation was with JJ Killian there, and JJ was part of our panel on a couple of occasions, and hopefully he'll be back to us soon as well. James is on to say Michael Healy-Rae was doing nothing for the forestry people anyway and won't be missed from the government. That's James's opinion. Another listener saying Putin must be very happy with his puppet in the White House. Oil prices up, global economy in trouble, less money to help Ukraine. Putin's puppet is delivering for him, says Michael, who's in Killinall today. As much as I would love to see them fall due to their arrogance, and we've seen the arrogance firsthand around Dundrum, for example, despite High Court quashing Section 5, arrogant minister said business as usual. If the government were to fail, there's nobody that we could put in that would do anything any different, it says here. It says Mick to us today. Okay, and lots more on that, and I'll have a look through it. But right now, let's move on to something else, because again, President Donald Trump, he delivered an extraordinary broadside against Pope Leo, saying that he didn't think the US-born leader of the Catholic Church was doing a very good job, and that he was a very liberal person, while also suggesting the pontiff should stop catering to the radical left. Now, flying back to Washington from Florida over the weekend, he took to social media with a lengthy post, indeed sharply criticising the Pope, and continued his remarks, indeed, while speaking to reporters on the tarmac. Well, Father Iggy O'Donnovan joins me now. Good morning to you, Father Iggy.
Good morning, listeners, everybody.
Good to talk to you as always. Were you surprised at the Donald Trump's so public, scathing remarks about the Pope, Iggy?
Well, it's the first time I can ever recall any leader, publicly at least, and in such a very public, blatant manner, attacking a Pope. Back the years, and there have been good popes and bad popes, but I've never quite come across this one. Also, it's interesting that Bob Prevost, Leo XIV, is the first American Pope ever, and it's the first major clash between a Pope and an American president.
Yeah.
That's an interesting little snippet, because and it can't be easy for the Pope, because America is his native land and his family are still there, and so forth. So it can't be that easy. I'm sure that there's probably MAGA people slagging off his brothers and his nieces and nephews now,
Of course, they would both be coming from very different parts of the political spectrum, I suppose, with Donald Trump's brand of conservatism, and Pope Leo, I suppose, would be viewed as being liberal, Father Iggy. Is that fair comment?
Well, liberal, like he comes from a working class family in Chicago. I know that.
Yeah,
I knew that 4 decades ago, but. Liberal, my God, by most of my stretches of liberalism, I always found Bob Prevost a cautious, careful type of man, and I dealt with him in the Augustinian order many times.
Yes,
and certainly the idea calling him a radical or appealing to the left-wing radicals, Bob Prevost certainly is not that and never was. He'd be a careful, cautious man, and which is why there's a bit of surprise at this particular clash at the moment. But I think even more interesting than Trump's comment, his vice president has commented as well, who is incidentally is a convert to Catholicism. This is J.D. Vance. And he says that Bob Prevost Pope Leo should stick to morality and matters like that, and not politics. Well, now, if war and peace and life and death are not moral issues, I do not know what is.
Yeah,
So,
and of course the other irony of all of this is that when he got into office, he presented the president presented himself as being a man of peace and somebody who was going to promote peace right across the world. As it turned out, it's very opposite to that, is it not?
It is, and well, he's become so, I don't know the word is, unpredictable. He can come out with anything. Like one of his comments is that Pope Leo would never have gotten the job if he hadn't been in the White House. Now, that's absolute poppycock of the highest order. He had no say, good, bad, or indifferent, but somehow he is credited with the Pope getting the job. No, I don't know. It's an extraordinary row, but I have a feeling that the general public generally, I think, will sympathise with Pope Leo on this one and feel that what he's saying is we all know, for example, that the Iranian regime, they are a nasty lot. We saw how they dealt recently with their own peaceful rioters and so forth, within tens of thousands of them, but Trump's thing about that he would annihilate, last week I think he used the term, annihilate the Iranian race. There's 95 million Iranians. He can kill 10 million of them and they'll be still there. And bombing alone, and aerial bombing alone, as Hitler discovered in the Battle of Britain, you can hammer the life out of a country from the air. But the boots on the ground and the people on the ground who are resisting will be the ones who win out in the end. And I think that even though the Iranians have been bombed, not quite into the Stone Age, but my God, they're still there. They're still fighting back. And of course, above all, as we know ourselves, they're fighting for their own country, which, whatever your politics is, you put things aside when you're defending your own country. And I'd say the average Iranian, whatever they think of the mullahs and these Islamic extremists who rule them, they certainly, I don't think, want to be ruled by Donald Trump.
For the sake of argument, though, to the best of my knowledge, Pope Leo did not speak out on the killing of so many of their own people by the Iranian regime, Father Iggy.
He didn't, but I think there is one difference in what the Americans. The big difference is Trump is leading from if you like, the Western democracies, the liberal democracies of the West.
Yeah.
So that what is being done there now is being done in our name. Like, nobody was surprised that the mullahs reacted the way they did to their own people, and that's what they do. Nobody's surprised when Putin, like, there's no riots in Moscow, it wouldn't happen. But nobody's surprised when it does happen, that the clampdown, because that's what you expect. And North Korea, or wherever it might be. But we expect better from the democracies of the West. So I think that I see some of this is being done in my name, and that's why I would particularly condemn it. I'm not condoning anything else, but at least not under the guise of democracy and freedom and so forth, religious freedom and political freedom. So in that sense, I see where Pope Leo is coming from. Now, he's between a rock and a hard place because he knows about radical Islam. He also, of course, has to deal with radical Islam because he's first and foremost a religious leader. As we're speaking, I believe he's in Algeria,
yes,
where 99.9% of the population are Muslim. Now, they gave him a very warm welcome there yesterday, the Muslims. But nevertheless, these are the people he has to deal with. And Trump, in a couple of years' time, will have moved on. The papacy will still have to deal with the Muslims. And the average Muslim, they don't make strict distinctions between America and Europe and all that. The fact is, we are Westerners. We are, as they see us, infidels. And we are a threat to them. And many of them are quite fundamentalist, I know that. But nevertheless, I find this whole row with the Pope and the President extraordinary. But and knowing Leo as I do him personally, and just to remind your listeners again, I know that he was at least 7 times in Ireland in the recent years, including a week at one time at Horse and Jockey, and a pint at McCarthy's in Feathers.
Yes.
I mean, he has been around, and in many ways I see him as, if you like, as one of us.
Yeah, just as an aside, what you said there about Muslims and about the Islamic faith, very few people are speaking out like that, Father Iggy?
Yeah, like the Islamic faith, which is as large as Christianity almost now and growing rapidly.
Yeah.
But so that, like them or love them, you have to deal with them. It's like a neighbour next door. He may be a noisy neighbour, but he's the one you've got. And so that Leo, I think, is seeing the bigger picture too. It's the Christianity versus Islam, and unfortunately, a fundamentalism is creeping in. And Trump, among others, is putting forward a very extreme version of Christianity. And he actually used a word last week about going on a crusade. Now, if you want to upset a Muslim, that's a word to use, crusade, because it resonates with medieval oppression. It's like threatening the Jewish people with a Holocaust. It's a word you do not use. But the clown used it. And if you want to stir up Muslims, that's one way of doing it. Talk about crusading against them. It's a medieval term, but it has a connotation.
Is there
connotation for Muslims, which is dreadful.
Of course, indeed. And if you know your history, you'll know exactly what you're talking about there. Where Pope Leo is concerned himself, is he setting himself up now as a political figure? I'm not saying that this is a bad thing, by the way, but is he going to be more political than other pontiffs in recent times?
Yeah, well, part of the huge admiration for his more colourful predecessor, John Paul II. Like, those of us of a certain age will still remember the communist regime and the Soviet regime in Poland.
Yes.
And how it was brought down by a trade union solidarity. Lech Walesa.
Yeah.
Some of your listeners over 40 might remember some of this. But John Paul was held in enormous admiration, that he was the man who cracked that communist monolith in Poland. And he was seen as the man who brought down the Berlin Wall in the end. That the people of Eastern Europe, led by the Poles, simply said they couldn't take the oppression and the Berlin Wall and all that went with it anymore. And the old Soviet system collapsed. Unfortunately, it's been replaced by something which doesn't look much better now. But nevertheless, John Paul was up to his neck in the politics of that. And you might remember he worked closely with Ronald Reagan.
Sure.
And he was hugely admired for it. And so that it's a bit ironic that John Paul, working with Ronald Reagan, that the first American Pope finds it very difficult to work with Trump. But then, God Almighty, Trump has the British Prime Minister, the Italian Prime Minister, the German Chancellor. He has attacked them all. In fact, Micheál Martin has come out a bit unscathed so far.
So far, indeed, so far.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, though, that I think about 55% of American Catholics supported Donald Trump in the presidential election. So
he cleverly honed in on this thing for the family. God, he should know it because he's on his third. But he also did this honing in this big thing on abortion.
Yes.
And where America has become quite fundamentalist and are reversing, they led the way in Roe versus Wade, if older members will remember what I'm talking about there. The first great abortion case in the Supreme Court. Now, but in recent years, he has come out so strongly against it and whipped up, especially right-wing Catholics and evangelical Protestants. And they've become a major constituency. But interesting, last night, the ancient order of Hibernians, who are a right-wing religious group in the States and powerful, came out strongly against Trump on this row with the Pope. But you're correct about many Catholics did vote for him, and American Catholicism actually is much more traditional than Irish Catholicism.
Yes.
Well, what's left of us now.
And because of that, would they be not so supportive? God, my grammar. Would they not support Pope Leo because of their conservatism? Do you think?
Well, there is that lethal cocktail, that mix of politics and, incidentally, some a good few American bishops, including Dolan of New York, have been supporting Trump and turning up at his these so-called prayer meetings in the White House and so forth. And they would be something that would reduce Mr. Paisley of the 60s to a fairly tolerant guy. But and many Catholic bishops were against the Democrats.
Yes.
Traditionally, at one time, especially Irish American Catholics were great supporters of the Democrats,
For sure.
Jack Kennedy and all that stuff. But I don't have all the detail, Fran, of American politics, but it is true that American Catholicism has been moving very much to the right politically.
It's interesting.
And away from the traditional Irish working class thing that it was associated with in the old days.
And just finally, Iggy, because you know Pope Leo, any chance of him coming to Ireland over the next while? Or have you any inside story for us on that?
I don't have any inside story. I know he's been delighted to meet Irish people and remembers them. And in fact, even that lately, that Ryan lad from the Feathered area who met him on the safeguarding issue and was so pleased and happy, and how Leo actually remembered Tipperary and Feathered and even McCarthy's he mentioned.
Yes.
You know, so he's very, very pro-Irish and has been here many times, but it's really not his decision anymore. Like, I understand he has dozens and dozens of requests to go here, there, and everywhere. And I suppose another little point is that a papal visit to Ireland anymore is no longer the great thing that it used to be. To probably stir up some resentments and protests and so forth nowadays.
And we saw that with Pope Francis to some degree, I suppose. Father Iggy, pleasure as always. Thank you for making time for us this morning. Thank you.
God bless, and God bless to all in the Valley of Sliabnamon.
Okay. Thank you. That's Father Iggy speaking to us there. Will you be speaking to Ryan O'Mara and Michael Lowry on the show today, Fran, and asking them why they didn't stand up for the people who voted them in? We gave them both.
Tipp FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puckon, main Peugeot dealers in the Premier County. And now stocking the full range of the luxury French car brand DS Automobiles. Book your test drive today with Slattery's Garage, Puckon. See slatterysgarage.ie. Tip Today, in association with Slattery's of Puckon, your main Peugeot dealer for over 50 years in the Premier County. slatterysgarage.ie.
Thanks, Pat. Welcome back to the second hour of Tip Today. Now, as you well know at this point, the government has survived a motion of no confidence by 92 votes to 78, despite the loss of Junior Minister Michael Healy-Rae. Now, as is routine, the government put down a motion of confidence in itself to counter the no confidence motion and won that vote. Labour Deputy Alan Kelly joins me now. Good morning to you, Alan.
Good morning, Fran.
And thanks for coming on with us today. Obviously, you voted no confidence in the government. You said this government needs to go, Alan.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, we can go through how we got here and everything. I find it very hard to say anything good about this government. It's deeply, deeply unpopular. It reminds me of the government that came in place from 2007 to 2011. And it just brewed into a crescendo, and where it was so unpopular, it had to go. And that's kind of where this is heading. There's a lot of new TDs in Leinster House, and for the first time, I'd say in their careers in here, you can see a lot of worried faces, because the level of communication coming from the public to them is astounding. It's incredible. And many of them would say that they have, never witnessed such unpopularity, the way people are telling them that they are not listening to the people. And this was signalled some time ago. In the budget last year, when they got rid of the cost of living measures, was a signal that they weren't listening. And then from there on in, Fran, simply put, we're now at a stage where they are trying to chase back the situation, and they won't be able to. And, I very much believe that what happened as regards what they brought in the last 48 hours was necessary. I have no comprehension how they didn't know that they had to bring this in beforehand, because that's marks of arrogance and a lack of political nose that the public are absolutely at the end of the tether, and it's going to get worse. I'd like to make a couple of points on that. Firstly, dated Brent oil, which is an index of where oil is in the world, is actually, as we speak, at its most expensive ever. And that has downstream impacts over the coming months, which means things are going to get worse. And on top of that, then, I mean, we had the deal for all the sectors who are heavy fuel users and absolutely necessary. But for the ordinary worker, for the fixed income person, for those with disabilities, for those who are vulnerable, there's very little for them. And I can see the trade unions and the public in general asking the question now, what is going to be done about all of our issues? What is going to be done about 320,000 in energy arrears, medical bills going up, cost of raising a family, groceries up 6.5%, and I'd like to talk a little bit about that. Childcare costs, educational costs, bringing in extra costs now in relation to exams and transport and everything. How are people going to survive that? Ordinary people, the people listening, the nurse, the guard, the factory worker, the creche worker, how are all of these people, what is the government going to do for them? And that's where this is going to go now, and that's where this should go now, because the people are really struggling and really hurt.
Much of this, and the Taoiseach spoke about this yesterday, Alan, much of this is from outside influences, and economists are screaming at this point and saying you can't keep chasing that. You can't spend your way out of these outside influences to us, particularly the wars going on at the moment. Do you take that on board?
100% I take on board that much of this is from outside. I mean, what sort of a politician with any credibility could stand up and say that world factors aren't a major component of this? Of course they are. I mean, that's as obvious as the nose in your face. But when you're in government, you have a responsibility to look after the people. We are a very wealthy country. We have, excess amount of money at the moment, thanks to a fabulous economy built on a lot of hard work going back many generations. But you do have to look at, and you have to prioritise people. And, there are measures which could be done, which could help people in a prioritised way. Those who are on lower incomes, middle incomes, families, and single people, those who are vulnerable, those with disabilities. And that's where we need to go now. And I can tell you straight out, having spoken to people in trade unions, there is going to be a demand for wage increases like never before in the coming months, because ordinary workers cannot sustain the cost of living as it is. That is a fact. And I, Frank Corey, will support those 100%, because that's where this needs to go. It needs to go out there to the public, to be saying to this government, as they are very much, we understand and support that the sectors that really needed it to stay going, haulage, obviously agriculture, those working in transport, bus companies, etc., they needed what happened, otherwise they would not be able to survive. However, now, what about us? What about ordinary workers? What about people who are vulnerable? What about people on fixed incomes? When you've got inflation at 6.5% and rising when it comes to foodstuffs, the groceries are going to keep going up, whether it's meat, whether it's chicken, whether it's eggs, whether it's any issues in relation to crops. Everything is going to go up. And how are people going to pay for it, Fran? How are people going to pay for that? And nothing in relation to kerosene, in relation to obviously people heating their homes. We're not anywhere near warm weather yet. All of these things are going to blow up in the government's face. I can see it. I can predict it. I guarantee it. There's going to be a lot more pain for this government because of the choices they made. And they began making those choices last year when we were screaming at them that we needed to continue with measures to help people who are vulnerable and help people who are in low and middle income, because they wouldn't be. 320,000 households are now in energy arrears. Think about that. 320,000 households.
Well, a possible way, or that might go partially to helping people, would be to suspend the carbon tax, for example. And,
so that's already happened. I mean,
all that has happened is suspending the increase of the carbon tax. But I mean, Labour has been very supportive of the carbon tax.
Wait a second. The only long-term way in which we're ever going to get out of this situation in relation to fuel and the type of fuel we're using is when we sustainably invest in the proper infrastructure across this country, like the Silvermines hydroelectric project, which is a project obviously I'm hugely associated with, and all the other changes in relation to bringing in renewable energy, and also retrofitting people's homes. I believe there is a need for a form of carbon tax in order to pay for that. However, I do believe that it does need to be tweaked so that those who are, the way in which people are paying it, It's not those who are most vulnerable on lower incomes who are paying disproportionate amounts. But there are other things that can be done too, Fran. For instance, I'm going to give you a list.
Right, sorry, but just stay with the carbon tax for a moment. So what are you saying to me that needs to be looked at in terms of who pays it? Is that what you mean?
No, I think as regards when the balance between where homes aren't being retrofitted at the scale in which they should be, and those who are dependent then on fossil fuels to heat their homes, and many times they're on low income families. The balance between that needs to be tweaked into the future, and we look at how all of that.
Right, but I mean, most people can't afford to get involved in retrofitting, and the ESRI recently raised questions about the whole effectiveness of retrofitting at this point. In fact, so
Well, retrofitting is good, Fran. Anyone who says it isn't, it is good.
Well,
However,
the ESRI has questions.
I know, I saw it. Maybe the methodology and the way in which it's been planned. For instance, when you're retrofitting homes inside a council estate, you should be retrofitting the whole lot, block by block, rather than house by house. I think that's just efficiency. It's crazy. There should be interest-free loans in relation to retrofitting. The manner in which the absolute amount of red tape that people have to go through. On my office, people working in my office
it's
are
horrendous.
Horrendous. That's horrendous, and you've had it on your show numerous other times.
Yeah.
But we also need to look at a mileage scheme for essential workers who are going to obviously be paying more when it comes to nurses, when it comes to guards. We need to look at a mandate, particularly in the public sector, for working from home again, to save on energy, and because I believe that should be done. We need to look at costs in relation to public transport, because I think there's probably more to be gained by cutting prices to ensure more people are using it. We need to put maximum price orders in relation to the sale of fuels to ensure the prices charged to the public reflect what the actual price is being paid by the retailers. And let me just please get into the whole issue of groceries. Because as far as I'm concerned, there is absolute rip-off going on here. Now, three things in relation to this. Firstly, we have an excessive pricing bill, which basically means that everyone, Aldi, Lidl, Tesco, SuperValu, Dunnes, every one of them should have to publish their revenue as regards how much they are making every month, every year in the country. It is not mandatory. It should be mandatory. And then the competition authority should be allowed to go in under each area and say, interrogate and say what is being done as regards, is it excessive, is it not excessive, etc. And let me just say this to your listeners here, because I suffer from this as much as anyone else. When you walk into Dunnes, when you walk into Tesco, before you walk in, there's a panic. Have I got my card? Have I got vouchers, etc., etc., etc. Right? I'm sorry here, but at the end of the day, they're not doing that for the good of your health.
These are the loyalty cards. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
I believe they should be banned. I believe that they should be investigated by the competition authority, because despite what people think, and I suffer from this as a consumer myself, despite what people think, they are actually costing people more. People are having to spend more, and we end up in a situation where people can't afford. What it should be based on, shopping, when it comes to all of these groceries, should be based on quality, it should be based on service, and most of all, it should be based on price. And everything there is being mixed up because of these schemes. And I have asked on the floor of the Dáil for this to be investigated, because I believe it is absolutely ripping people off and contributing to the 6.5% we have in relation to inflation on food in this country, and people can't sustain it. I saw a lady with a basket of groceries, and she showed me her bill there recently in a shopping centre in Nina, and she just threw her eyes to heaven and said, Alan, how am I going to sustain this? She's 3 kids, 2 teenagers, one younger than that. How she's going to sustain this? The bill was €270.
You say, Alan, the government has to go, but what would the alternative look like? I mean, the Taoiseach warned Labour, I should say, that you've tied yourself to the hip of Sinn Féin and you're going to regret that. There was an element of trying to distance yourself somewhat, I think, in the chamber yesterday from Sinn Féin. What about that? What the alternative would be?
Well, I mean, to be honest with you, last time we went into government was 2011, and it's 15 years ago, Frank. We paddle our own canoe. as regards, I'm not in hooks to anyone. Everybody who knows me knows I'm a straight shooter. I say it as it is. I'm not in hooks to anyone. Any government would obviously have to be formed pending an election. But the fact is that this government is there. It's stale. Fine Gael have been in government since 2011. Fianna Fáil have more or less been in government since 2016. I mean, it's stale. There's a lack of quality in government.
But do you think you could work with Sinn Féin as a party, Alan?
Listen, I don't think in modern times there's any way any party can rule anyone in or out, because at the end of it all, you have to have a government, you have to have numbers. Having said that, any government that the Labour Party would enter, it would be on the basis of the issues that I just spoke to you about. That's what we bring to the table as regards ordinary workers, as regards protecting people from our social values, right? I also think we need to promote our indigenous industries far more to prevent potential shocks later on, given the way the world is going. But having said all of that, there is an issue. We have a government in place that has lost the public. We have a government in place that is stale. We have a government in place. When you have a situation where Minister Jim O'Callaghan said you're bringing in the army, like, what was going on? Bringing in the army, friend. When I heard that, I just went, what is going on here? And he didn't consult with the Minister for Defence by the looks of things. I mean, what? I mean, when you have a scenario where that is going on, where that's how arrogant the government is, I hear people saying they've lost touch with their people. I kind of tweet that. I'd argue nearly against it. It's not that they have lost touch with the people. They're not their people, Fran. Because this is a very right-wing government supported by right-wing independents in the main as well. This is a fairly right-wing government. So their interest isn't with the type of people who are suffering in the first place. Because if it was, from the last budget to now, they would have listened. And I know they're going to suffer more. The public are going to suffer more because they're not listening. So they need to make this government listen. They need to make the government listen over the coming weeks and months. Because trust me, it's going to get a lot worse.
They were attempting to do that with the protest. Did you go out on protest?
I met with loads of people as regards the protests. I met with loads of people who were on the protest. I wasn't at the protest.
And was that by choice? Do you mind my asking?
Well, to be honest with you, there was a protest inside Nina, which I knew about on Sunday. I wasn't actually aware until Friday morning of the one that was on Saturday. But on Sunday, I have personal commitments. Friend, I'm not just the TD, particularly on Sunday mornings. But I've spoken to loads of people. I have no issue with the people on the protest. I have no issue with the people who were so frustrated. I would have issue with some of the leaders of the protest. I would have some issues in relation to, particularly, I suppose, the issue of the oil refinery and things like that. But by and large, 100% majority of the people who are protesting, ordinary, decent people. Having said that,
do you know, it's interesting, and I mean, we hear it here almost on a daily basis. There is dissatisfaction with the government out there, but is it not fair to say that Labour has not benefited as a party, according to all the polls, from that dissatisfaction, Alan?
Well, look, Fred, that remains to be seen. I mean, I'm inundated with people onto me. People can look at my social media, can look at what I've been saying for the last number of months, a year and a half, can look at what I've been saying in the last. I am the only TD in North Tipperary to vote against the government. I've put forward my own proposals. I'll be speaking in the Dáil soon. I'll be put forward my own proposals again, some of which I've aired here. I'm doing my part. I'm always this. I do the family shopping every weekend, Fran. Do you know why? Because it's good, it's educational. I meet people, I see the prices myself. I can gauge week by week the price of everything. I can see how the various different shopping centres are operating. That's what the TD should be doing, going out and listening to people, going out and experiencing it themselves, rather than actually being in a lofty height and in many ways being arrogant and looking down upon people, because really you've got to reflect the real world. You've got to experience it yourself. I have 2 young kids. I have a very elderly mother who obviously isn't well. I have lots of people in my life who are struggling. I have lots of people who are struggling in relation to a whole range of different areas, and I see it firsthand. And I know unfortunately, things are going to get worse before they get better, because there has to be a volte-face attitude from the public towards the government, towards their strategies, and then there has to be either a volte-face from the government or a complete change of government. And I would sincerely believe that it's the latter that has to happen.
And before I let you go, can I ask for your opinion on Michael Lowry's contribution to the debate yesterday?
And to be honest with you, yesterday after the vote, I had a number of meetings here, actually about housing and a number of projects, good projects for Tipperary. I didn't see his contribution. I just heard a component of it this morning. But Michael Lowry can speak for himself. I don't speak for him. I think the public can decide about Michael Lowry's actions, about Ryan O'Mara's actions, about all the Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael and independents who support this government, their actions over the last number of weeks, and more importantly, their actions and what they're going to do in the coming weeks and months to help the people who are struggling across Tipperary and across Ireland. We need a complete change and focus. We all know, everybody knows, that as regards where the world is going, we're in difficult times. I'm not denying that. But the primary objective, the primary thing a government needs to do is to protect its citizens, is to be fair to its citizens, is to ensure the vulnerable are looked after, and is to ensure that families who are working, people who are making their contribution in society, hard-working people, that they are being respected and that they can get through a difficult period. Right. And singularly in this, we have done it through COVID, we've done it through other issues, but here, this government is failing, and failing badly. And I have never, for a long time, seen such anger from the public in Tipperary.
All right. Thanks for your time this morning, Alan. Thank you. Good morning to you. And that's Deputy Alan Kelly speaking to us this morning. 1800 938 007.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puck On. Main Peugeot dealers in the Premier County. And now stocking the full range of the luxury French car brand DS Automobiles. Book your test drive today with Slattery's Garage, Puck On. See slatterysgarage.ie. Tipp Today, in association with Slattery's of Puckon, your main Peugeot dealer for over 50 years in the Premier County. slatterysgarage.ie.
You know, this week, Jackie Conboy, co-founder of the Music and Entertainment Association of Ireland, reached out to the programme, and he joins me now. Jackie, good morning to you.
Good morning, and a very restless night last night.
Did you indeed? Because you told us you're kind of shocked at what's been going on, Jackie.
I actually sat down and watched the Oireachtas TV. Some people would say, you know, have you nothing better to do in your life than... But I said, no, I'm going to sit down and watch, you know, what our government are saying about the protests. Now, the one thing I want to just say this, because if I don't say this now, I forget about it. It wasn't a blockade. They used this so many times. It's like using the far right. You know, and you know, with the different other protests, they kept using far right to get into people's subconscious here. But they kept saying blockade. It was a protest. And it wasn't just a fuel protest.
Right,
here.
but Jackie, when they referred to blockades, were they not talking about the fuel depots and particularly the refinery in Whitegate?
No, they just kept saying blockade. Because that's the buzzword, and that's to get it across to people that really, maybe some people that don't understand. When they hear blockade, they go, "Oh my God, you know, this is horrendous that they're blocking every part of the country." They didn't really go and say, "Oh well, it was the blockade in the ports and the protesting around the country." It was just blockade. I couldn't get over it every time. A minister or the Taoiseach or Tánaiste that stood up, it was blockade. But then when I was listening to them, Fran, and they're talking about health and about education and about, you know, all of these things that they've done, and I'm going, am I in the same country as what I'm listening to these guys talking about, because I paid out €166 only a while ago for my son to do his leaving cert. And then to have another thing introduced, another thing in regards to health, like where if you're sending a child to school, now you have to pay €100. And then all the contributions you have to pay going along. And then you look at all the amount of people that are on trolleys, the amount of kids that are actually waiting for procedures, and parents sending kids abroad to get procedures done. You know, I was kind of going, am I in the same country as what they're talking about? And that's, I think, what people are saying. The government is so far removed. And to me, the arrogance, and I listened to the interview that you had with Minister O'Donnovan.
Yeah.
And I could not believe the arrogance that was there. And I felt sorry for you listening to that and actually having to be, you know, diplomatic about it. And then he was trying to put words in your mouth. And I saw this on the Tonight Show last night with Claire Curran, when Shane was there trying to put words into her mouth, trying to turn it around into being nearly like a far right thing. Oh, Father Ted comes to mind. You're a racist now, Father. You know, it's all this stuff that the government are doing. They're attacking every other one instead of going, hang on, maybe we didn't do the right thing here. Maybe we have the wrong leaders there in the first place. Maybe that should change. And where you have people that actually listen to the people who elected them.
It's interesting. So, you know, are you saying to me a complete lack of humility? Is that the?
Yeah, I think it's just respect, empathy, understanding. I mean, when was the last time that our Taoiseach put diesel or petrol to his car? Does he understand that, you know, when he goes shopping, that you're looking at the prices and going, God, I don't think I'll be able to put that in, and because I have the SB bill. None of these guys that were standing up there in the Dáil talking about, you know, oh, we understand the plight, you know, we understand we have our constituents, you know, and we're listening to them. But they're not living it.
And what about what about the Taoiseach's point that, you know, that this government was more generous than any other government in the EU, for example, with Spain coming close, but not all that close? What did you make of that comment?
I disregard that, and I kind of just look, and when I'm talking to guys like farmers and guys in the construction industry, like the construction thing is going to come to a full halt because they can't afford to finish the buildings now because of the prices. So, you know, it's okay to say, oh, what other countries are doing. I don't care. I want to see stuff being done in Ireland. And the fact that every time you put on the radio, we're a rich country. And you're going, am I living in the same country as all these people are talking about? Because I don't see it.
And do you accept the other point that it's outside influences that has us where we are, whether it's the war in wherever?
I don't.
Yeah.
I don't. And it's funny, only a couple of nights ago, a good friend of mine sent me on stuff about Whitegate refinery. And I think people need to look at that and see how that ended up in a Canadian company's hands instead of being in our hands. Ireland has given away so much, Fran, down through the years. We could be self-sufficient. We had oil, we had gas, and we keep giving everything away. And then we end up having to import everything, and now we're in this mess. And every time you look and see, well, who's causing this? It's either Fianna Fáil or Fine Gael. So there's something seriously wrong, you know, with our governments, or, you know, that down through the years, and it's the same kind of policies. It's like, let's give that away. You know, let's not have that. It's like the beat going back. That was one of the first things that was given away.
Yeah.
We had an amazing sugar industry given away. And if I go way back, we had an amazing rail system in Ireland. And I'm going way back now.
Sure, yeah.
And what did they do? And I think it was Fianna Fáil decided, no, we'll focus on the roads, and we'll forget about the railway lines. And then it ended up all the railway lines around the country were taken up. There's bad decisions. Look at the Children's Hospital. You know, they were told from the start it was the wrong site. Told at the very start, but did they listen? No. The Dublin Port Tunnel, they were told it wasn't high enough for the higher trucks and stuff that were coming in. And did they listen? No. So that means that the lorries with the higher trailers, they have to go in towards Dublin. So they're not listening. They're not.
And Jackie, what did the protest say to you? And I was looking at the considerable, and it wasn't properly reported, the amount of people that turned up outside of the Dáil yesterday while the confidence vote was going on. What does all of this protest say to you now? Because we haven't been active in the past in terms of protesting. It doesn't come naturally to us like it does to the French, for example. What does it say to you?
It says to me now, and I think it's the straw that has broken the camel's back here, that, you know, down so many different things going on, and people are just going, we've had enough. We just have enough of all this thing of giving monies to other countries, other nationalities, and all this millions, maybe billions that are just squandered, and not focus on our own people. The whole thing here is you should look after your own people first and then help other people. But this thing of kind of, look at they're all right. They're paying for everything here. We're grand. You know, we just keep taxing them.
Well,
we just keep putting up the fuel.
You told me you were listening, so you would have heard Patrick O'Donovan's answer to that when I put that to him, that the impression from people out there is that we can find money for all sorts of other things, you know. And then he came back at me and said, well, who wouldn't you support, like, sort of thing, you know. So.
Oh, yeah. And he was talking about Palestine and yeah, we bring in children for Palestine, put them in hospital and you know, whatever. But yet we can't do that with our own people. We shouldn't have waiting lists. If we're that rich, we should have no waiting lists. And as someone said to me on an interview going back a while ago, said, wouldn't it be great, Fran, if we didn't have these conversations that are actually, government are actually working, and that we'd be talking about, it's a fair play to this minister, fair play to that minister, you know, that the jobs are being done, but there's no accountability, there's no oversight. So we have to have these conversations, and we're having these conversations for years, and nothing gets fixed. You know, so it's time, and I think it's coming to this point now where people have had enough, and they want change. They want a government that will actually listen to them. I mean,
yeah, but on the run up to the general election, I heard exactly those comments. You know, people want to change and blah blah blah, and still they voted in the way that they voted. You know, so is it a case that they're looking to what the opposition is and saying, well, okay, I'm not sure about that either.
Yeah, but here's a problem, and I can just make a comparison here. If Jackie Conboy, I went along and I brought out a song, and I send that CD to you, and you play it, well then there's a chance that, you know, my song might take off, and suddenly I'm playing in bigger venues and da da da. Yeah. Now let's bring this to politics. You have a party, be it Aintu, be it Independent Ireland, and then the likes going back to Maria Stain. Now, if they got on RTE, News Talk, and all the main stations, and the likes of Tipp FM, and all the local stations, and they were given the same opportunity as Fine Gael, Fianna Fáil, and even people before Profit seem to be getting so much media as well. if the likes of Matty McGrath, and I want to say a big hello to Matty. I think he is in hospital, and I think his wife was as well. So I just hope that all is good and all that. But if the likes of Matty, Carol Nolan, all of these people got the same amount airtime as the government are getting, but they're blocked.
Yeah, well, I would say this, wouldn't I? But they get it here. I mean, and we're very careful about that, giving a voice to alternative opinion,
Yes, but you're one of the few because, and you saw what again, the Minister O'Donnovan said that it's very sinister that the amount of coverage by media on the protests. Yeah. Like he was sending out a signal. Say, lads, stop getting people or talking about the protest here. It's very...
Well, I'm sure he would disagree, and he would say he was looking for balance, but that seems to have gone away now, and Simon Harris coming out to say that it wasn't necessary to have an investigation into that. But, yeah.
Well, there you go, but it's... And when you have a whip system like this with Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael, I know there's backbenchers there that are not happy in both Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael. But if they say anything or come out and do anything, they will lose their jobs. They'll be, they'll be told to leave the party. So it's like a dictatorship. Now, fair play to Michael Healy-Rae and Danny. I mean, I was shocked. I was going, oh my God, at least he has a backbone. And he's listening to the people around him.
Right, but what? That's it. I mean, was it not just pragmatic? Was it not just realpolitik? I mean, he could sense, particularly where his brother was concerned, where this was going in Kerry,
Well, but sure, why wasn't Sean Canny, why wasn't others the same way? I'm sure the likes of all these guys, and Michael Lowry, I couldn't get over Michael Lowry and then attacking Sinn Féin when what he should be doing is trying to help the people that are out there that are in serious difficulty. Never mind attacking another party here.
Well, I'm sure what he would say, he's well able to speak for himself, but I'm sure what he would say to you there is that, you're better off to be on the inside at the decision-making table, and at least you have some influence in that sort of way, as opposed to being outside of the tent.
Okay, but we're still we still have major problems here. The package didn't hit, it didn't hit the target. So it didn't. So, again, I know Michael Lowry, and he works very hard for the people of Tipperary, and I understand that, and he gets a lot of stuff done. But we're still we still have a problem. We still have a problem. This carbon tax thing, it has to go. They're using the retrofit. Okay, we need this money to retrofit. Now, look at the retrofit. If you're well off, you can afford to retrofit.
Yeah.
If you're in social housing, it's provided. But for the likes of a lot of us out there, we can't afford to do it. So, I don't know. It's just, again, they're not listening to the majority of people.
Right. Well,
and that's
Jackie, most interesting conversation, and always glad to have you on. Thanks for coming on with me today, Jackie. Thank you.
And thanks for having me.
Thank you. Good morning to you. That's Jackie Conboy there. Jackie, co-founder of the Music and Entertainment Association of Ireland. We'll take a break, back in just a tad.
Tipp FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puck On. Main Peugeot dealers in the Premier County. And now stocking the full range of the luxury French car brand DS Automobiles. Book your test drive today with Slattery's Garage, Puck On. See slatterysgarage.ie. Tip Today, in association with Slattery's of Puckon, your main Peugeot dealer for over 50 years in the Premier County. slatterysgarage.ie.
And you're very welcome back to Tipp Today. Now, Hughie O'Donnell from Care, a very frequent contributor to us on the programme. He took to social media recently to share his sadness at the scenes in Cork during the fuel protest, and he joins me now. Good morning to you, Hughie.
Good morning, Fran, and good morning to all your listeners on your show, Tipp Today. How are you keeping?
I'm very well indeed. You said at the age of 55 you thought you had seen it all, Hughie, but you were shocked by some of what you saw during the protest.
Yeah, a bit broken actually, because I thought in my lifetime I'd never see the likes of that. Let's say Gardaí, Army getting involved with people being manhandled and pushed and shoved and teared and dragged and pepper sprayed. I said, what's it all about? But I'll tell you what it comes down to. The government. They put those protesters there. They put the Gardaí there. They put the Army there. They put me there. I was on the protest. I looked at the Constitution. I wanted to make sure to myself, let's say, on Article 40.6.1 of the Constitution, a peaceful protest, and that's what I did as well. I didn't want to be there. I had to look into my heart. I had to look into my soul. I had to look into everything. But what I saw there below in Whitegate, it disturbed me. It disturbed me no end. I put up those couple of lines, couple of words. I was broken inside. It got a reaction I wasn't expecting, because people are feeling it. Not only Hughie O'Donnell, but every farmer, every truck driver, anyone that puts the key in the ignition of a vehicle, we're all feeling it. And it just put me in an absolute corner, an absolute pickle, that I had to be there. I didn't want to be there, but I was distraught. And who I met then, I was apprehensive. Do I go down to this protest? So I pulled in Knockar, and I met a man that I worked with 30 years ago driving a truck. I met a man that went to school with my brother. He's a farmer, and not one of us wants to be there.
You went to Whitegate yourself, did you?
No, I went to Knockar roundabout. It was on the way home.
I beg your pardon. And in general, just sum up what you heard from people, if you would, for me, Hughie.
Look, we all use it. It's the straw that broke the camel back. This isn't about fuel. It's a cost of living crisis. It's a cost of living crisis, and we know this. It's health, it's housing, it's tax, it's excise duty. It's this wonderful universal social charge. We're paying and paying and paying out. It's property tax. It's those voting machines that are now null and void and absolutely scrapped. It's about bike shelters. It's about security huts. It's about a hospital that seems to be going on and on and on. And BAM are cleaning up left, right and centre. It's happy birthday and happy Christmas every day. Where is the 14 billion? Where is the 14 billion from Apple that we got in 2024? There's a rainy day fund set up there in 2019. Lads, ladies and gentlemen, it's a tsunami outside our door. I'm just absolutely addled over all of this.
Some of what the Taoiseach said yesterday was he spoke about the outside influences on the cost of living here, the cost of fuel here, the cost of energy here, that is beyond our control, resulting from the war in Iran. Do you take that on board? Absolutely not. I'm not even going to mention that man, the President of the United States of America. He's no bearing on this. Iran has no bearing on this. We've been doing what we're told here in relation to a lot of things. That has no bearing. It's been used. It's been used to manipulate us, so to keep us kind of, it's not our fault. Look, it's not. It's not our fault here. But lads, I just mentioned to you there, we have huge amount of wealth in this country. This whole 10 cent that came down recently, 5 for them and 5 for us. Lads, we have money, we have riches in this country, and they'll just use it as just to keep us quiet. Throughout that jargon there, throughout those lines, and keep them quiet, keep them happy to some particular extent. Do you know what I mean? They're using that, trying to manipulate it. It's not. It has no bearing whatsoever. It's just the fat cats are getting fatter. Yeah, but in fairness, it does have a bearing on the cost of fuel. The world oil price does affect it, Hughie.
No, it doesn't. It shouldn't affect us here. Something that's going on the other side of the world. They are not looking after us.
It does, because we're buying in this product, and.
No, we should look on the other side of the world. What about the North Sea? Do we not have oil refineries there? Let's say on our particular hemisphere, not over the other side of the world. Do we not have that? Do we not have oil of riches? Are we not using those? I struggle to take on board that the other side of the world should be affecting so thousands and tens of thousands of miles away that it's affecting us here. All those numbers and all those figures, they're factual. I didn't pull them out of the sky. I didn't pull them out of fresh air. So we need to be accommodated and looked after more. to be perfectly honest, let's say we shouldn't be getting involved in something like that has no bearing. We didn't.
But are you saying to me, Hughie, that the protest was much bigger? It wasn't just about the cost of fuel, and it was all of the things you mentioned there coming together. Was that it?
Absolutely, 110%. It's just the one, let's say, that pushed us into a corner, pushed me into a corner, pushed so many people, let's say, the Irish Haulage Association, the IFA, who weren't there, to be honest, let's say, people just had enough. Okay, they just said to us, we have to take one for the team. We have to do this one ourselves. And I was looking at these people eyeball, face to face, and they said they were absolutely, it was the last resort. It was just one thing after another. It was a domino effect, let's say, that they said, you know what, enough is enough. It was like Popeye. That's all I can stand. I can stand no more, and I'm coming out fighting. In a nice, peaceful protest, and that's what it was. And that's what I felt so comfortable about, that I could stand there and talk to these people.
All right. Will you stay with me for a few moments, because I have to go to news, Hughie, and I'll talk to you in the next hour. Could you hang on for us?
I will do that for you, my friend. Thank you very much.
All right, Hughie, just hang on for us and we'll be back. News is on the way. Just take this break.
Tipp FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puck On. Main Peugeot dealers in the Premier County. And now stocking the full range of the luxury French car brand DS Automobiles. Book your test drive today with Slattery's Garage, Puck On. See slatterysgarage.ie. Tip Today, in association with Slattery's of Pecan, your main Peugeot dealer for over 50 years in the Premier County. slatterysgarage.ie.
Thanks, Pat. Welcome back to the final hour of Tip Today. Our free phone number is 1800 938 007, and Hughie O'Donnell is still with me. Hughie, would you view the protests as a success?
Yes, I would, because I think now there's a huge realisation by the government that we're just not up for it. We're just not happy. We're tired. We're exhausted. We are, we're watching every single penny, and we shouldn't be living our lives like that. The government have put us in a very awkward predicament, a very awkward situation. And I think, yes, the realisation and the tens of thousands of people that came out and protested, voters that voted people into these positions in Dáil, in the Dáil, in high office, TDs, that I think it has been successful. But I think we're warming up. We're warming up. There's a general election on the way somewhere down the line. I don't know when, but that's going to be very interesting. And I'd just like to bring your attention to something. The last time I was on to you, or not the last time, previous time, I won't go off the beaten track on this, but we were on about a presidential election, you and I said, long story short, I think Micheál Martin's position is untenable. There has to be a vote of confidence. And your one word back to me was, wow. And that needs to continue. People need to keep on getting on to their TDs, their local representatives, and say, listen, lads, you need to get your house in order. If there's a general election in the morning, I don't know what way I vote, but I can tell you this. I'll never vote Fine Gael, and I'll never vote Fianna Fáil ever again.
You mentioned the presidential election there. Some people were rather critical that we didn't see much of President Catherine Connolly throughout this whole crisis. Your thoughts on that would be what, Hughie?
I have it actually down in my notes. Thanks for mentioning it, Fran. Where was she? I am a woman. I am a person of the people. I'm with the people. I'm for the people. I don't know, does she have any social media account, even a tweet, even a press release, at all? Michael D. Higgins, he'd stick out something. He mightn't be right. He mightn't be wrong. As a president, but you have no, let's say, real power. You're the head of the state. You're the head of the country. It's a board falls to your position. I know that. I said that before. But you have some bit of clout. You have a say. Everyone is entitled to your opinion. She is entitled to her opinion as well, the president of this great land of ours. She should have said something. She should have, because people are there now and they're kind of saying, hello, absolutely. People, hello, Catherine, they're knocking on the door of Ars an Uachtaráin. Are you there? So I was very, we didn't have an option in the presidential election as far as I could see, but she is the president of Ireland. But you know what? It was deafening, absolutely deafening that there's nothing coming out.
No, I know that there's certain parameters to her role, Hughie. But do you think maybe something simple like, you know, to call for I don't know, calm heads on this, or to try and calm things down?
Yes, absolutely. But she has a platform. She has a position. You're going to laugh at this one, right? I even put up my stories. Another person that's should have come out and said something. And he said, what do you mean by that? He is in contact and he shares platforms with presidents, prime ministers for decades. He was there in Live Aid, Band Aid. He's so vocal. So look at his city. Look at the protests in his city. Did he not think? And yet he comes along then a few days later and he's back. He's up again. Let's say he's been quoted. Now I forget what was going on, but all of a sudden he shared a tweet or a quote or something like that. Catherine, where were you? Like, you know, it's you know, it's just something simple. I know what's going on with my country. I appeal to everyone, let's say, cool heads, calm heads, something, articulate it, Catherine, as best you can at all. But there was nothing, and it was shocking, to be honest with you. It was really, really sad now not to hear or see anything.
The result of all of this, then, and where we go on from here, is it possible that this might just all go away in some sort of fashion?
No.
No, you don't think so?
No. I tell you why. It's around us. Do you know what it really felt like? And I don't like using it. When I stood there at the protest line, it felt like COVID. I said, "There's something not right here. There's something in the air." I know, and even now when I'm going out to work and talking to my work colleagues, and we're looking at each other, we're living week to week, basically. So we're not happy. This isn't going away. It's not for me anyway. I can only speak for myself.
I found it interesting. I was looking at the coverage on national TV last night. I was also looking at the videos of the amount of people that turned up to protest outside of the Dáil during the confidence motion. I don't think it was reflected in the TV coverage. How many people were there yesterday? Because it was an enormous crowd, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, look, I'm not going into conspiracy theories like that, but social media is great, and social media is great to the extent that everyone has a camera, everyone has a phone, and you can go around. Now, I wouldn't stick in everyone's people's face. Yeah. I'm cute enough, but like with social media and all your platforms, your own personal platforms, you can see stuff. When it comes to, let's say, our national media, I'm not saying anything out of turn here, out of place, but they're being backed up. I was told by someone, no, I don't want to be casting aspersions, they got 750 million there very, very recently to keep RT afloat. They have a lot of land around them. They should start selling that land. You know, like we're not happy with RT. Let's say that's what's gone on there recently as well. Let's say with flip flops and everything as well. I remember all that. The people will know all that. So when it comes to, let's say, what's being portrayed and what we see, okay, take it on board. Look at your news headlines. But people are going through their phones as well and they're kind of saying, yeah, I didn't see that. That. Some of it is makey-uppy. Don't get me wrong, let's say, on social media, but some of it is factually correct as well, like, you know.
All right, before I let you go, did you want to mention something? Leanne was telling me, have you some races on or something like that, Hughie?
Yeah, please and thank you. I appreciate that. We'll rattle this out. This is all good for the body, for the mind, and for the soul, what I'm going to tell you here now, ladies and gentlemen. On Saturday, the 9th of May, Clonmel AC, in association with 3 Clonmel there in O'Connell Street, are having a 1 mile race. Very unusual, very unique. We'd like to give thanks to our Garda Síochána and also to Tipperary County Council to facilitate this. So that is on the 9th of May, €10 entry fee, big prize money. Also then in Powellmucka on the 15th of May, thanks to Sports and Social Club out there in Caremeet and Train, there is a 5 and 8K. I'm putting on my runners for that. You'll see my beautiful pale legs, and that's at 7:30, let's say, in Powellmucka on the 15th. Feathered Athletic Club then on the 22nd of May, the Walls of Feathered 5K. That's a €20 entry fee, €15 online. We'd like to give thanks to David O'Mahony Electrical for that. And last but not least, I'd like to shoehorn this in my beautiful adopted town of Clare. We have the annual St. Declan Walk, Pilgrimage Walk, here in Clare, coming from Cashel next Saturday, the 18th, and also then on Sunday, the 19th, it's going from Clare to Gorton Bridge, and that's the St. Declan Walk. These are all good things and powerful things. I'm involved in a couple of them. Thanks very much, Frank Curry, and thank you all on Tipp FM.
You're getting worse than Johnny Luby at this point.
Don't charm me with that brush, please. I'm only messing Johnny Luby. I'm only messing.
Good to talk to you, Hughie. Thank you. That's Hughie O'Donnell there speaking to us from Care this morning. Now, Michael English will be performing in Nina on May the 4th for a charity concert at St. Mary's of the Rosary Church, with all proceeds donated to Pieta and to Sarcoma Cancer Care Ireland. Well, Geraldine Hilmy board member of Sarcoma Cancer Ireland, has personally witnessed the impact of sarcoma in her own life, and she's joining me now in the studio. Good morning to you, Geraldine.
Good morning, Fran.
And thank you so much indeed for coming in to us today. Will you tell us about your son, Sean, Geraldine?
I will indeed. Sean was a very active 16-year-old boy who used to play a lot of tennis and do a lot of running, a lot of sports. When he presented with a pain in his leg, which just... It started off with just a pain running down his leg and maybe him losing the power of the leg, and then he was attending physiotherapist, and they thought maybe he had pulled a muscle or it was a bit of sciatica. So we were attending the physio for quite some time, and he was having different treatment with the physio, but it wasn't getting any better. And that continued for maybe 4 to 5 weeks. And then this was all during COVID times in February 2020 when it all started to transpire. So the physiotherapist, who was a great man, John Casey here from Nina, and he said, I'm not happy with the situation with Sean and maybe we need to pursue an MRI to see if there's an issue with his hip. So we proceeded to have an MRI, and that day we went into Barrington's in Limerick and had the MRI, and they called me that evening just to say that they couldn't fully see the images correctly and they would like Sean to come back the next day and maybe do a second image, which we did, and that was in April. Went back the next day. I'll always remember the second MRI. I was a long time outside waiting for Sean, and the previous day I was a long time, but we didn't think too much of it. We thought, this is how long it takes. And by that afternoon, they had rang my GP, and my GP had rang me to say that they had found a significant tumour in Sean's sciatic nerve, a 12 centimetres tumour. That was leaning on the sciatic nerve, and it was very serious, and that they were going to refer us. My own doctor GP got on to the relevant doctors in Limerick to have CT scans done. So that was on a Friday. We were into Limerick on the Tuesday morning because Monday was a bank holiday. And we had the CT scans done and MRI scans done again, and etc. And we had to wait a couple of weeks for the results of that because part of the scans, they wanted people in England to read them as well, so they were fully informed of everything. So it took about 2.5 weeks to come back, and in the meantime they also did a biopsy, and that went to England and on to America also. And we then had to wait for that to come back. So we were leading into May, and Sean was in excruciating pain. By this point, he could just barely move his left leg, and he was finding it very difficult to walk, and he had lost the power in his foot, and power he had lost in the back of his leg, going up along his leg. So it came back, the biopsy from England and America, that it was a very rare cancer. It was called Ewing's sarcoma cancer. So they had said to us that we would be going directly on to Dublin. So we were also speaking to another gentleman in Cork, but we would be attending St. Vincent's Hospital in Dublin. And 2 days later, we were in Dublin, and Sean started his treatment of chemotherapy, which was very intense. It was a very strong chemotherapy, so we were kept in Dublin for 11 days for the first batch of that, and he was very, very sick during that time in the hospital. So they had hoped that they might be able to curtail the cancer and that the chemo would work. So we proceeded on to have chemo, and we continued like that for a couple of months, up and down to Dublin, and scans in between. And at one point they said that we're happy with the chemo, that it was hitting the tumour, that it had shrunk significantly. And we were overwhelmed and delighted, and we continued on our journey. And this continued from the 1st of June, he started the chemo, till August. And they said give Sean a break for the month of August because it had had such a huge impact on him. Very strong chemo and an awful lot of side effects and etc. So we had the month off of August for the break, and then we were going to go back and have what they called a big PET scan. And they were hopeful that we would be able to have surgery. Sean, we would be going to England for the surgery, and Sean would have had to have a full legectomy and hipectomy, is what they had hoped for, and to get clear margins. So anyway, we went, we had a month off for the month of August. But by the end of August, Sean had said to me, "Ma'am, I feel the pain, the original pain coming back in my leg. And I feel like I'm losing strength in my leg again and I can't feel my foot." So we went straight back up to Dublin and they did more scans, and we were due to have another session of chemotherapy on the 15th of September, which we went ahead and had that chemotherapy. And in the meantime, we went on to have another PET scan, and we went back up to Dublin in horrendous pain towards the end of September. And the results of everything was in, and they repeated again to be sure. But the end of September, they said to us that the chemo had stopped working. It wasn't working, and that Sean's cancer had metastasised through his organs and in his lungs, and it was travelling up to his brain. So there wasn't anything they could basically do at that point for us, apart from offer us palliative radiotherapy, just to keep the pain at bay. Obviously, we were absolutely devastated with this news. We went on to get different opinions from abroad, from different oncologists in different countries, and they all came up with the same opinion. So we then went on to Rathgar, to St. Luke's, and Sean had 4 weeks of radiotherapy on his pelvis and his organs along that area.
And you chose not to tell him the full extent at this point.
We did.
Did you, Geraldine?
Oh, we did. Yeah. He was finding everything extremely difficult because he was losing his ability to walk, and he was struggling with everything. So, and he was only 16. So my husband really felt he didn't want him to know the full extent of the prognosis. And he discussed it with our own GP, and he came up with the same conclusion. Rather than add on more anxiety and stress onto the whole situation, we didn't say to him. But when we were having the appointments with the consultant in Dublin, he discussed everything with Sean, and he didn't say to Sean specifically, "You have X amount of time to live," or anything like that. He just kept saying, "We will continue our best to do everything we can for you."
Yes.
And it wasn't till Sean was, till we came home in December. We had been up and down to Dublin and in and out of Limerick for times where Sean was in an awful lot of pain, that the Milford Care team came on board, and they said to us, obviously, we will speak, if Sean wants to know anything, then we will answer that. And we said that's absolutely fine, But when the palliative care doctors were speaking to Sean at home, in our own home, they said, Sean was finding it very difficult. He couldn't swallow very well, and he couldn't talk very well. One side of his face he'd lost the power in it, and he was losing his vision, and he was losing his speech. So he had just said to the doctors, "Is there anything you can do for this?" And they said, "No, this is the progression of the cancer." So he just said, "I don't want to know anymore." So that it just took the question away, and for us to even, but deep down I think he knew, but he didn't know.
He did have a conversation with you, Geraldine, at one point where he said, "I'm very ill, aren't I?"
He did. And he didn't. I said, "Sean, you are very ill, pet." And he just kind of turned his head away, and he didn't want to discuss it anymore.
Oh, God.
I feel he had kind of accepted everything but didn't want to know anymore. So he was scared and frightened, I suppose. And those things. So it was difficult. But he was an absolute Trojan the whole way through it. He was an inspiration to us all, for sure.
I can't begin to imagine what it was like for you all to go through that journey with Sean. I mean, it must be a completely lasting effect, is it?
Absolutely, Fran. It was obviously it was Sean that was going through all of this, but it was very traumatic on his dad, myself and Laura, his sister and his brother Craig, to see him go through this, to watch somebody who was so energetic, full of life.
Yes, very fine athlete by all accounts.
Absolutely. Yeah. To lose his mobility, his vision, his mobility to talk, eat, swallow. I mean, it's one of the worst things you could even imagine. So to go through it, to watch him go through all of that was very traumatic, and it does have the after effects of continuing.
You also spoke about receiving that phone call to basically tell you that palliative care was the only option at that point, and you described yourself as how broken you were.
Yes, I'll always remember it. I'll always remember, because it was going through COVID times, so the consultant rang me. It was Friday morning, and I remember putting a bag of rubbish out in the dustbin at the back of the garage, and he rang me, and he gave me that news over the phone, and I remember just sitting on the ground, not even able to talk, begging him to try and do if he could do something else or send us elsewhere. But all the other opinions that we got from different countries in the world, it just came back the same, that there wasn't anything, and we all came up with the same opinion. So we had to just do the best we could with Sean's situation after that and make him as comfortable as possible, because it wasn't going to get any better. And he did tell me it was very fast, aggressive cancer, and it would have an awful impact on him at the end of his life, and it did.
Was he able to communicate with you up to the end, Geraldine?
The last 2 weeks of Sean's life was extremely difficult, and the palliative care nurses that came from Milford were absolutely fantastic. Because he lost the mobility to speak and swallow, he couldn't eat and he couldn't drink, and he couldn't talk. So it was hard for him to communicate with us. And obviously he was thirsty, he was hungry, we weren't allowed to feed him. So that was extremely traumatic for him.
Because he was looking
for something to eat, he was looking for a drink, and we couldn't give it to him, because if he had drank, it would have gone straight into his lungs, he would have choked to death. So there was all those things that were extremely difficult, which I wouldn't have obviously discussed before, but it's just to make people aware of what an aggressive cancer it can be and how hard it can be on somebody, and what an impact it had in his life, to go from being a really healthy young athlete to losing the ability to walk, talk and eat. It was very, very difficult.
How rare is the sarcoma? That Ewing's sarcoma, is it? How rare is that?
It's very rare. It's very rare, Fran. There are over 100 subtitles of sarcoma, and some aren't as bad as others, but I mean, they are all bad. But the one Sean had was one of the worst. It was probably number 1 to number 3. There are 3 that are in the worst, and his was the second one. That is the worst subtitle sarcoma to get. It's a rapidly growing cancer, and it spreads so quickly. And once it metastasizes, even just to the lungs, it's very difficult to come back from that.
Do you go through all of the whole gamut of emotion? Do you go through anger and desperate situations?
Absolutely.
Is that
as a parent, you carry awful guilt that you couldn't have saved Sean and made him better. As a parent, it's our obligation to do the best we can by our kids, but you do carry an awful lot of guilt every day. But I'm learning, we all are learning to try and just do the best we can and keep putting one foot forward and keep, make awareness for people, because I would never have known what a sarcoma was until we were presented it with Sean, we would never have heard of it before.
It was during COVID time, as you pointed out, Geraldine. Did that make it even more difficult?
It was very difficult because I was the only one that was allowed into the hospital with Sean. So my poor husband, he didn't get really to have that time. I had a lot of time with Sean in the hospital. But in one respect, it was good because when Sean was home, his sister, who was a teacher, and his brother, who was a teacher, they were both able to have the time with him. But the time we spent in the hospital together, as hard as and difficult it was very special. And, the memories I take from that alone, I carry them with me every day, but it was an awful difficult time, COVID, because we were trying to mind Sean and we were trying to navigate the whole journey and up and down to Dublin and in different hospitals for different scans, and we were kind of all over the place and in and out of the doctor's surgery, and it was very difficult.
As I say, I can't imagine how difficult it must have been for you and your family, Geraldine. Much research is needed into this, which is, let's go back to the fundraiser then, I suppose.
Absolutely. There's so much research. The chemotherapy that they provide for sarcoma patients is it's been ongoing for over 40 years, and there's not enough research done in it because it's such a rare form of cancer that it's not spoken about. So there's very little research done in it. So the Sarcoma Cancer Ireland charity was created, I suppose, about 5-6 years ago. So I got involved with them in the last couple of years. And they're a great charity, totally voluntary, and they help people to navigate anyone who is diagnosed with a sarcoma diagnosis. They help them, their families, to navigate trying to get through it and help them financially, with all the different aspects of going through cancer. People don't know what's the next step to take, and Sarcoma Cancer Ireland Board will, the people there, there's great people there that you can telephone and ask for direction and guidance, and they'll guide you through things. They provide psychotherapy for anybody who's going through the treatment to help them. They give financial grants. They're there at the other end of the call, even just to answer questions. So anything raised for Sarcoma Cancer Ireland will go to help families. From children to adults, financially in any way they can. And it's all voluntary. There's nobody getting paid on that charity. It's just all voluntary, people giving up their time and their efforts, to try and help other people.
So the Michael English concert then on May 4th, it's happening at the church here in town, and proceeds from that going to
That's
the
correct. We have Michael English coming to St Mary's Church in Nina on Monday the 4th of May, and the proceeds from the event will go to Sarcoma Cancer Ireland and Pieta House, and both two great charities. So we would be so grateful if people could support us on the night. It will be a super night, and the tickets are €30. They can be bought at the parish office opposite St Mary's Church in Nina, or they can be got from Lisa Baker's, or they can be bought online. There's a link you can link into online, and Michael English also has his site. You can get the tickets online. Or myself, I have tickets and my number is on the leaflets. So we'd be delighted if people could come out and support us on the night. It will be a beautiful night, and we're so grateful to Father Pat and the parish team of the council to give the church to us for the night. It's such a beautiful church, and we're delighted to be able to hold the concert there.
Well, Geraldine, it was lovely to see you today, and I'm sorry if it distressed you to go through the Sean's story again, but I think it's special that people would hear his story and remember him.
Thank you, Fran. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, well, lovely to see you, Geraldine. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much, and thank you to the listeners.
We'll take a break. We're back with more in just a moment.
Tipp FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puckon, main Peugeot dealers in the Premier County. And now stocking the full range of the luxury French car brand DS Automobiles. Book your test drive today with Slattery's Garage, Puckon. See slatterysgarage.ie. Tip today in association with Slattery's of Pecan, your main Peugeot dealer for over 50 years in the Premier County. Slattery'sGarage.ie.
Now, listener says Sean would be so proud of his mum speaking right now. I'm in tears listening, but what a woman. Her son fought until the end and is a credit to her and the family, as is she. Lots more coming into us on Geraldine's piece with me this morning. God bless that woman, it says, and the rest of her family as well. Just heartbreaking, and my heart goes out to her, and that's an indication of what we're getting in here. But just to repeat again, the fundraiser is Michael English. It's proceeds in aid of Sarcoma Cancer Ireland and Pieta as well. It's the Church of Mary of the Rosary here in Nina. It's Bank Holiday Monday, the 4th of May. Tickets are €30 from the Nina Parish office and from local outlets there as well. And Michael always puts on a marvellous show indeed. Now, academics from the Technological University of the Shannon and University College Dublin calling for an urgent revitalisation of Ireland's sugar tax, stating that in its current form it's increasingly insignificant and invisible. And Dr. Frank Houghton is living in Ballina, as principal investigator at the HEALR Research Group in Tuss, and joins me now. Good morning to you, Frank.
Good morning.
And thank you so much for making time for us this morning. Why do you think the tax as it stands now is insignificant and invisible?
Okay, well, there's a few reasons for that. Firstly, when the tax was first introduced, it was really quite marginal even at the time. The way it works is if there's less than 5 grams of sugar per 100 mils, basically you don't pay any tax. And if you're between sort of 5 grams of sugar and 8 grams of sugar per 100 mils, you would have paid, you pay 5 cents on sort of a standard size can. And if it's a higher sugar rate, sort of 8 grams and above of sugar per 100 grams, which Coca-Cola would be an example, you pay 8 cents. Now, that was introduced back in 2018, but here we are, practically 8 years later, and obviously there's a few things that have happened. Inflation has eroded, sort of the real worth of what was quite a marginal amount to start with. But perhaps more alarmingly, we've done 2 bits of research. One, we went around 14 different supermarket chains, and in the other, we went round 100 hospitality venues, so cafes, hotels, pubs, clubs, this kind of thing. And in both bits of research, we found that an awful lot of the time, people are actually being charged the same amount for the diet drink as well as for the full sugar drink. So to some extent, the sugar tax in its current form isn't working.
Was it ring-fenced in some way to help towards the obesity epidemic that we are currently in? How was the money spent, I suppose, is what I'm saying to you, Frank?
Yeah, unfortunately, no. And, there have been many, many calls for it to be ring-fenced. Me and my colleagues would certainly support that for a few reasons. I mean, at one level, people are much more likely to support a tax if they can see in a concrete manner where that money's going. We feel it should be ring-fenced for obesity prevention and treatment services, but also more than that. I mean, some of that money could be put into almost what you might call active food production. So to support community allotments, community orchards, community gardens. We really would love to see that money ring-fenced. But unfortunately, Ireland rarely does that on any of the taxes that it takes.
And have you got data on how effective the tax was in terms of maybe people making a decision not to buy certain products?
Yeah, it's hard to disentangle it, but basically the few of us who are active in this field, we're also the same people who got the contract to review the sugar tax for the Department of Health some years ago, and we do. It's really quite dramatic. It was, as I say, introduced in 2018. It was introduced partway through 2018. But if you look at the data for 2019, there was between a 20 and a 30% reduction in sugar intake in the population from carbonated drinks, whether they were buying them from supermarkets or whether they were sort of buying them in cafes or bars. Now, that really is quite a significant reduction, and it's great to have seen that. But what we've tended to notice is, at the time when the sugar tax came in, there was a lot of hype about it in the media. Obviously, there was a lot of debate for and against. And again, of course, we all anticipate that. But I think it's largely disappeared from people's minds. And what we're calling for is a dramatic increase in the sugar tax so that people aren't being charged the same amount for both diet and full sugar drinks. We also have another issue at the moment. And I don't know if you've noticed it. I know I certainly have when I go to my sort of local garage or corner shop or whatever. What we're noticing is the tax has been really quite successful in causing a lot of the most popular soft drinks to reformulate. So if you go back a number of years, the likes of Pepsi, Sprite, 7-Up, Club, Fanta, they would have all had a fair amount of sugar in them. But what we've noticed is Coca-Cola is really one of the few really popular drinks which have stayed at, well, that's actually at the highest tax level. The taxes, we would argue, has been very, very successful. It's actually forced or encouraged, is probably a better word. It's encouraged manufacturers to reformulate their recipes to healthier, to less sugar-oriented recipes. So now Pepsi, Sprite, 7-Up, Club, Fanta, they've all actually reformulated to less than the tax threshold, which is fantastic. But what we've started noticing is, as I say, when I go to my local shops, I used to be able to really, really easily, pick up a 330 ml can of any of my, any of those drinks. But if you take a look the next time you're in, if your listeners do, you'll notice that it's increasingly hard to buy what you might call the traditional 330 ml can. You're increasingly faced with either 500 ml cans or 500 ml bottles. So we have this problem that even in the sector where we have encouraged the manufacturers to reformulate, it's great. They've reduced the concentration of sugar, but they've now increased the volume that people can sort of buy routinely.
This is the super size, the notion of the super size, yes, I suppose, yes.
Absolutely. So one of our other calls is, we can clearly point to the success. Okay, it's disappointing Coke didn't reformulate, but looking at, as I said, all the others, Sprite, Pepsi, 7-Up and that, they have reformulated, and it was clearly in response to this tax. So what we're also calling for is if we could introduce a stepped program whereby that tax kick-in threshold was slowly reduced over time. At the moment, as I say, it's 5 grams of sugar per 100 mils. If we could maybe over 10 years or so reduce that to 2.5 grams per 100 mils, we think that would be really important. It's kind of, I don't know if people necessarily think of it in this sense, but if you take a standard can of Coca-Cola, the full sugar Coke,
yes,
that many of us are familiar with, even in the what I would now call the old-fashioned 330 ml can, there's actually 8 spoons of sugar in that. Wow. And I'm just thinking, if you were to sit down at coffee break and spoon 8 spoons of sugar into your mug of tea or coffee, people would look at you rather strange. And part of our worry here is this supersizing of cans and bottles, because they really still are single. They're still sort of single person portions. This increase in can size means that your average 500 ml can of Coke now actually has 12 spoons of sugar in. And I just don't think people are aware of that. I mean, that's a colossal sugar intake, particularly if you were doing it day in, day out.
Well, as somebody who's very fond of carbonated drinks, that certainly is a shock to me, Frank. What about other jurisdictions? Because my understanding is there's over 100 countries who have introduced some form of sugar tax. Are other people doing it better than we're doing it?
You're quite right. I mean, the WHO, the World Health Organization, is actively pushing this, and and with good reason. From a government perspective, it's to some extent a no-brainer. It costs the government almost nothing. They do get revenue from it. It would be great to see that revenue better spent on relevant interventions. The UK, I suppose, has recently introduced some innovation. They are in theory at least, going to introduce that stepped program of sugar reduction. And I think although occasional countries have reduced their sugar, to the best of my knowledge, none have actually done what the UK is saying they're going to do and actually lowering it so far and so fast. So I think it is always worth keeping an eye on what is happening internationally. I would just say as well, though, one thing that is worth considering, the World Health Organization is pushing hard, suggesting that the sugar tax should be 20% of the cost. Now, I don't know about you, but I often pay, I don't know, the guts of €2 for a can. Sometimes it's 1.75, but sometimes it's 1.95. It's approaching €2 for a can of drink. At our current tax level, even let's say it's Coke, at our current tax level, it's probably about 4%. So the WHO, what they're suggesting would be really quite a dramatic increase.
Indeed.
But,
I beg your pardon.
I do feel it would help.
Yeah, I'm sure it would indeed. There's a very stark line in my notes, and I presume it came from yourselves, Frank. 60% of adults in Ireland are overweight or obese, and the figure for children, 20%. Wow.
Yeah, no, and this is, I suppose, why people like me in public health are so supportive of a sugar tax. It's not a silver bullet. It's not going to solve everything. We're not for a moment pretending it is, and it is good. I mean, our rates of overweight and obesity do appear to be plateauing. Now we need to get a few more years' data to see. But it really is a huge issue, obviously, in terms of things like diabetes, cancer, heart disease, as well. I mean, those are the very sort of medicalized conditions, but just in terms of stigma and well-being as well. I think
interesting question from another Frank. That's Frank in Thurles, and he's saying, are artificial sweeteners in soft drinks more dangerous than sugar? And he's mentioning aspartame in particular. It's an interesting question, Frank, isn't it?
It is, and you know, I'm not going to deny that it is a potential issue. What I would say is, to some extent, the jury is still out on that. There's stuff we don't really know there. I think there's no definitive evidence in that direction. But what I would say is, we do have very, very clear understanding of the calorific impact of sugar and how sugar directly impacts things like diabetes, cancer, and heart disease. You know, I think the link with obesity is very clear. I would also say, I suppose, in an ideal world, I mean, any dietitian or nutritionist you speak to, and I'm very fond of soft drinks myself, but any dietitian or nutritionist you speak to would simply probably write a lot of these drinks off as empty calories. And in an ideal world, we probably should be drinking more water and less of any of these.
Indeed. Frank, a real pleasure to talk to you today, and thank you so much for coming on. Thank you. Good morning to you. That's Dr. Frank Halton there. He lives in Ballina, a principal investigator at the research group there with TUS. Most interesting, I'm sure you'll agree. 1800 938 007. I'll be back to you in just a moment.
Tipp FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puck On. Main Peugeot dealers in the Premier County. And now stocking the full range of the luxury French car brand DS Automobiles. Book your test drive today with Slattery's Garage, Puck On. See slatterysgarage.ie. Tip Today, in association with Slattery's of Puckon, your main Peugeot dealer for over 50 years in the Premier County. slatterysgarage.ie.
Now, Leanne has just told me that Deputy Michael Lowry has accepted our invitation. He will be on the programme tomorrow, in the final hour of the programme tomorrow. In our Larry O'Keefe competition, Larry's sale is on as we speak, but we have that €250 voucher to give away on Friday. The finalist today is Martina Coleman from Newcastle. Well done to you, Martina, and best of luck to you on Friday as well. Now, before I go, let's speak to Irene. Good morning to you, Irene.
Good morning, Fran. You've been the whole morning, haven't you?
Well, it's lovely to talk to you, Irene. Will you tell me your story? You're a pensioner, I think, Irene, are you?
I am. I worked for the HSC for years, and I always looked after the elderly. And, you know, I'm here now myself as an elderly person and pension, but I'm just so cross, Fran. They had presented a blister pack for the pensioners,
Yes.
and not just pensioners, people that have arthritis, children that they have home helps coming into them, and the blister pack takes all the medicines that they have for the day, the afternoon, and the evening, and it's all rotated, and the chemist gets paid from the government to do this. Now, the chemist that I have is absolutely wonderful. They do everything. They look after us. If we're short, we're okay. So I'm not complaining about the chemist or anything like that.
Sure.
I'm complaining that they gave us €10 for the, what you call it,
in the raise for the pension, yeah.
Yeah, for the pension. Yeah, for the raise for the pension. Thanks, Fran, because
no
I
problem, Irene.
kind of had okay. And they took it back because they charged us €10. We can't get our blister pack unless we paid the €10. So
they gave it to you with one. They gave it to you with one hand, Irene, and they took it back with the other. Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying, Fran. But listen, I'm not just saying it for me.
Yeah.
Because I have been through many houses. I have been to all it just annoys me that the pensioners are quiet and they just go, yes, okay, and they're mixed up. And it's going to be it is going to be just someone is going to be hurt someday because if they don't have the blister pack, they don't know whether
they could take incorrect amount of medication or something like that, which could be very dangerous. It's very interesting what you're saying to me, Irene, on a number of levels, because we've seen the hauliers and the farmers out protesting over the past week. It's very hard for the pensioners to go out and protest in some sort of way and get their voices heard, isn't it?
And that's why I'm doing this for them. It's for them because, Fran, like, I'm a bit, not, I'm just really, really upset because I looked after all these people. I spent 17 years going in and out of their homes.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'd go, but when this hits them and they say, oh no, I can't afford that. I've my coat on and I can't afford it. They can't afford the €10. They just can't afford it. So they won't be able to do it. And like we used to be able to give them their medicine, but then the law came in and said, no, you have to leave it in the egg cup. And, but now this is ridiculous. Like, they don't know when they're going to get it. Did they take it? Did I take my medicine this morning? I don't know. Do you know what I mean? So this is what's going on, and I'm just worried that, no one is speaking up for them. Nobody. And I'm not doing it as a rebel or anything. I'm doing it for concern. I really am concerned that why are they taking €10 off the pension that they just gave us, and making it a health and safety issue.
And
I really
I remember I spoke about this a few months ago, but I thought they were going to do something about this, Irene, but obviously they didn't.
No, Fran, and I know you were very busy this morning now because I was just so sorry for that woman beforehand. But I'm just, you see, I don't know. I'm just flustered. I am flustered about it.
And we often hear on the programme as well that people are making choices between heat and maybe even food. Have you experienced of that, Irene? Is that very real?
Oh God, no! I don't have it myself.
No. But I mean, in terms of what you see and what you've seen over the years.
That's it exactly, Fran.
Yeah.
I see their Meals on Wheels on the windowsill as we go in to look after them, and they brighten up and they love their home help. They love it.
Yeah.
But now I'd say, can they afford of Meals on Wheels? They're after being hit with a €10, levy. So what's the story there? You know what I mean? Like, those are the people that are quiet. They won't talk. They will just say, thank you.
And they won't protest, Irene, I guess.
They won't protest,
but
they put on an extra coat.
And who does talk for them? I mean, you're talking, and very well too, if I might say so. You're talking brilliantly today. But who does speak for them? Nobody.
Nobody speaks for them. Nobody speaks for them. They don't, like for the years that I've been there, I've been everywhere. I've been in the places that you wouldn't want to be, but you are delighted to be there. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I just don't know, Fran. I'm just really worried about them and how they, will they take too much? Will they not? One woman, I remember in my heart, I was nearly crying going home. She didn't want to take her tablets, and I couldn't make her take them. But she just said, I can't afford them.
My God.
That was when they took back down the levy. Do you remember they raised they raised the tablets? Do you know the way you
how you pay for them? Yes.
And then they went back on it, and that was that. Yeah.
And we're not talking about a huge sum of money that would fix this with the blister packs.
Not at all. Why take the blister pack off them? And like the chemist is okay. Like I had a talk with the chemist now here in the poppy field, and like I go to them, and it's the story is that when I was working with the HSE, I was going in and picking up blister packs and delighted that they came up with this idea, And here I am picking up my own now. You know what I mean?
I know.
This is, many moons away now. But, it's just, what the heck are they doing? You can't blame people for being up in a heap and what have you. Like it's just the sneakiness of them as well. Like it wasn't out there. And so those people don't have their relatives to say, oh, ma'am, whatever. Why aren't you, because I haven't got the money. I had to pay it for my Meals on Wheels.
Well, Irene, I must leave it there because I'm out of time. But you spoke very well for them today, Irene, and I hope you and I can speak again about this, if that's okay with you. Would that be okay?
Yeah.
All right. Look after yourself, Irene, and thank you very much indeed.
You too,
thank
Fran.
Tipp FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puck On. Main Peugeot dealers in the Premier County. And now stocking the full range of the luxury French car brand DS Automobiles. Book your test drive today with Slattery's Garage, Puck On. See slatterysgarage.ie.